Hi, the next important foundation is identifying various deployment scenarios in your project or organization. So, after deciding the IT alignment process and establishing the C4E team, the next thing to focus on is to identify the deployment scenarios in your environment. So, in order to identify the scenarios, as an architect, you should first know what models MuleSoft offers and among those, what best fits you and your organization. So, let us have a look at these offerings from MuleSoft. So, MuleSoft offers its components as two separate functionalities, okay, because to separate their concerns and all. So an easy tip to remember is or to distinguish the component whether it falls under which particular functionality is to identify if a component is directly involved in the execution of a Mule application or not. So let me give an example. Say if someone asks you, okay, hey, is Anypoint Exchange falls under which category? Okay, then you need to just think, okay, is it directly involved in the execution of Mule application? No, right? Because nothing on the Anypoint Exchange actually runs on a hosted execution environment, correct? So that is how you identify. So your next question would be, what are we identifying here? Okay, yes, I know it is not directly linked with execution of Mule application. So now what? How do I know? So let me tell you, the two separate functionalities are the control plane and a runtime plane. Okay, so the control plane is a place where you control your entire platform. So the components that are inside the control plane or that belong to the control plane category or functionality will help you to control the platform, whereas the components which are under the umbrella of runtime plane helps you to actually run the stuff. It is straightforward, right? So now you understand what I mean, how you identify whether a component belongs to which particular plane. So now again, let's refer to the same example. Someone asks you, hey, is Anypoint Exchange runtime plane or control plane? So you know that now, oh, Anypoint Exchange does not has to do anything with the runtime part. It does not has to do anything with the execution of Mule application. It's a published asset, or it is for maintaining the assets, examples, snippets and all, right? So this is part of the control plane. So if now someone asks you about the VPC or Anypoint MQ, right? So then they are linked to the runtime execution, because in Anypoint MQ all the in-flight messages will go published and subscribed. VPC is the virtual private cloud which is required for aligning your Mule runtimes and all, right? So that is a runtime plane. Understood, right? Yeah. So if you remember, we had a look at one diagram during the demonstration of various components of the platform. I think it's 2 videos before. So there we saw the segregated Mule components, right? So like Anypoint Management Center, Design Center, Runtime Services and all. So to make it easy for you, what I have done is I have taken the same diagram and I have drawn a line between the components so that you can clearly know which section falls under the runtime plane and which all fall under the control plane. So if you see this diagram, the upper part falls under the control plane, the management center, design center, exchange and all. Whereas the lower part, which is the runtime services, VPC, Fabric, Anypoint MQ and all, and connectors, these are all under the runtime plane because they are linked to the execution of Mule applications. Right? So now that we know there are two parts, runtime and control planes, let us see in how many ways this can be set up. So this is where again your role comes into picture. In the early phase of the project, based on your customer requirements, their current setup, what they have on premise already, or what they want to be in the cloud, or how their licensing is, with these combinations, you have to assess and come up with a deployment scenario. So to come up with the best deployment scenario, you have to understand the next part, which is how a control plane can be set up and how a runtime plane can be set up. So in the next slide, let us see the high level, what kind of control plane and runtime planes can be set up. Then we will have a look at each combination in detail in the coming videos. So the control plane is offered by MuleSoft and can be hosted in two ways. One is the MuleSoft hosted, which means it's in the cloud, offered by MuleSoft, ready to use. You have to subscribe and then start using it. And there is also a customer hosted control plane, meaning you can have your own private cloud edition, your own cloud hosting like AWS, Azure, whatever, and you can host the control plane on your own, not managed by the MuleSoft. There are two types, right? Now on the runtime plane side, again there are two types of hostings, MuleSoft hosted one and the customer hosted one, but you can have again a different blend of combinations inside these two. In MuleSoft hosted runtime planes, you can again have a public cloud one, meaning your runtimes are shared among the public, other particular clients and other tenants, and there is a AWS VPC implementation you can do with the MuleSoft hosted runtime plane with help of the Anypoint VPC. Okay, so it will be your own private cloud, private network within the MuleSoft hosted runtime plane. And the second one category is the customer hosted. So even there again it can be two different ways. One is you can completely host your Mule runtimes on your own physical machines, physical blades, or physical your own VMs on the blades, like how typically old projects runs, right? Or some of the today legacy systems runs. So you can install and maintain from scratch. Okay, that is one very way. Then the second way is, if you do not want to take that much level down the level control and invest time in that, there is a MuleSoft provided software for customer hosted runtime plane, okay, where it is called Anypoint runtime fabric. So what is the difference? You may think, okay, anyway it's customer hosted, what is the difference that you install runtimes on your own on the direct machines or servers or VMs, and what is this Anypoint runtime fabric? How does it help? Yes, let me explain. So the bare minimum way how the customer has to install is completely the responsibility of the customer side. It depends on the knowledge their teams hold and how they know the best way to set up, and all this all combinations comes in, and it is very tedious, as you know, right? But whereas the runtime fabric, how it helps is, it comes with a Kubernetes cluster and a Docker container concept. Okay, it doesn't come with the physical Kubernetes cluster or Docker container. It comes with the technology of that. Okay, meaning customer has to still have their Kubernetes cluster and Docker containers set up and have that resources. But runtime fabrics, once your Mule application is ready, it can containerize your particular application into a Docker container and then host it on the, or make it as part of the Kubernetes cluster, so that your each Mule application is one node or a Docker container in a containing container technology in a Kubernetes, and they all such apps form a Kubernetes cluster. So you can relate it to something like a Cloud Hub. In Cloud Hub also, each of our application runs as one Mule Cloud Hub application, which is like a one image Docker container, and then you have many such applications running, right? So, and the workers and all are like a cluster of workers. Similarly, here Kubernetes will maintain. So kind of not one-to-one like, but something, that concept of Cloud Hub comes into your customer hosted environment using this runtime fabric. So these are different combinations, right? So now in, like you saw in runtime plane, there are four ways: two MuleSoft hosted way and two customer hosted way. And on the control plane side, you have two ways, which is MuleSoft hosted and customer hosted private cloud edition. Now combined together, you can have like kind of 6 combinations to set up. Like one MuleSoft hosted, you can have a MuleSoft hosted control plane with a runtime hosted MuleSoft plane, and you can have MuleSoft hosted control plane with a customer hosted runtime plane, and you can have a customer hosted control plane with a customer hosted runtime plane. So you got like permutation combinations between these two, right? So this is what we are gonna look in the next videos. We will take each combination and see how the setup would look at high level, and whether it is the best fit or not is something then as an architect you can decide for your organization. All right, happy learning.